Hey, so today I'm going to talk about PostHog SQL. So let's get into PostHog. So if you get into PostHog, you have this SQL editor which you can click on, and it sort of opens up this view where you are able to sort of write your queries and then run and get your results. Now, before we get into what features you have in PostHog SQL and how it works and all of those things, let's talk a bit about um, what PostHog actually uses to query your data, right? So it does not actually use MySQL or PostgreSQL. It actually uses Clickhouse, right? Now, what exactly is Clickhouse? Clickhouse is basically a columnar OLAP database that's built for fast analytics on event data, right? It's obviously very similar to MySQL and PostgreSQL, but there are quite a few syntax um, that's actually very different, right? And I'm gonna link this below, but this is the Clickhouse documentation, so you can actually go and see what's supported, what's not supported, how are things supported, right? So you should be able to get all of that information from here. Cool. Okay. Let's actually move into PostHog now. So I'll show you a few things. So I just imported a data set from BigQuery into PostHog, and I have done a very simple thing grouped by, so get me the event name, get me the count, right? Now, what all can you actually do here? The first thing you can do is you can go to visualization, and you can just like how you would create in a product analytics part, you can actually change the way you want to visualize this. So you could be like, oh, I want to look at a line chart, and my x-axis should be event name, my y-axis should be the count, right? Or you could change it to a bar chart, stacked bar chart, area chart, right? These are the options that you have. Somewhat limited. So for example, you do not have a pie chart option here that you might have in the product analytics part. So SQL editor does not have that, but it's good enough to start off with. So that's the first thing. So this is where you can choose your charts, you can choose your displays. This is really helpful, so you can be like, if you sort of want to show the labels, not show the labels, you have things on y-axis that you like, what's the scale you want to follow. If you want to follow a linear scale, logarithmic scale, you can change a lot of those things. You can also add a goal line. So for example, um, generally if you have like a timeline trend and you want to add a goal of at a certain number, you can use this to like add a goal line. Okay, Q4 goal is 80, right? And it sort of shows up here that, oh, this is the Q4 goal. Okay, so this also comes through the settings button, so you can click on the settings button to sort of view it, or click on it again to let go of it. Okay, the next interesting thing in PostHog SQL is variables. Right now, variables are nothing but a way for you to be able to filter on a specific column, and then be able to use that in your report or in your dashboard. Now, why does SQL have these specific query variables? So if you built a dashboard ever in PostHog, you know that PostHog automatically gives you these three things, right? Which is through which you should be able to filter for dates. So it's a date filter. You can add a filter based on whatever events, properties, whatever you have here, and you can also add breakdowns, right? But when you're usually writing SQL, because SQL is not exactly part of PostHog, you're probably fetching data from BigQuery, from any of your other sources, and bringing them into PostHog. These filters do not actually work on your SQL data, right? So what actually works is that if you want to actually add filters on your SQL queries, and then be able to use them in your dashboards, you actually need to go, like for every query that you write or for every report, you need to go to the variable section and actually add a variable. So how does that look like? I'll just quickly show you. So this is the same report where I've added a filter, right? So you need to go to variables. You need to choose a variable, which is, do you want it to be a string, number, boolean, list, date? I've obviously chosen it to be a date. I will give it a name. I'll select the default value, and I'll say, okay, is it a time, is it a timestamp, or is it just a date, right? And I'm gonna make that I'm gonna add that variable. And now how do you use this in your query? So if you hover over this, it tells you, okay, you can reference this variable using this, right? And I have a time column in my table. So what I've done is I've just converted the time to date and then said, okay, it needs to be greater than this, right? And that's how I'm referencing it. Now, whenever I sort of save this inside, it's already saved, but just to quickly show you, whenever I save this inside and add to a dashboard, so it's already added to the KPI dashboard. All of the query filters that are there with all of the reports will appear here, right? And now this would work with this report, but not with this. So for example, if I go somewhere like 21st and I click on apply, you're gonna see that this remains pretty much same, but this is what has changed, right? So this report and this report, both of them have changed pretty much. And okay, so another thing you also need to realize is, for example, I've used the I've used the date filter here, right? Variables.date. Now, if I use the same filter like variables.date on some other report and I add that as well to the same dashboard, the filter will actually work on both of them, right? So right now, if you saw, the filter worked on raw data with filter and event count with filter, both of them. And this is what raw data with filter looks like, right? I've just used this same variable.date here. And as soon as I add it here, you don't need to manually add the query variable in every report. You can just reference it by variable.date and PostHog would automatically create this for you, right? Cool. So this is with variables. This is super helpful when you're, when you have a dashboard that you build through SQL and you want to have a bunch of different filters. You can use this. There are a few things that that variables will not be able to do for you. I wouldn't say it's extremely advanced. For example, if I use a string, the user will actually have to add a string value, and it will not automatically pick up all of the values that your column can have, and it will not give you a drop down where you can multi-select as well. So if you choose a string, the user will actually have to type in the string value, and it's always single select, right? So PostHog variables currently do not have any setting here that allow you to like multi-select. You sure have a list, but again, the list is where you have to manually specify all of the options from your from your variables. And again, list is also single select, it's not multi-select, right? Okay, the last thing in PostHog SQL is materialization, which I found to be really helpful when you have some complex data. And for that, I'm gonna open this results page up. So let's say you're trying to create some sort of base table, or you have like a huge query running that gives you some output, and then on top of that you want to actually build up a report that you might want to look at daily or refresh daily, right? Now the issue in such things is that the huge SQL that you have, like which sort of builds up the base query or whatever it is, that's actually really huge, right? It takes a long time to run, it takes up a lot of resources. And so now let's capture two scenarios. So one where you have this long SQL where every time a user refreshes that report, that table that query reruns, right? Versus you have you have that huge query, but based on that query you've created a base table, and whenever you refresh a query, whenever you refresh that that report, what happens is it actually just refreshes that small line of code that's actually fetching the data from the base table. So now what you've done is that huge query, SQL query that you had, you're using that to just create a base table. And so that base table or that huge SQL code is not running every time you try to refresh a report. What's happening is it's only the part where you're fetching the data from that base table that's running, which is obviously much more simple and like cost friendly. And so that's exactly what materialization helps you do here, right? So if you click on materialization, so this is my query, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on save and materialized, and I'll give it a name, right? So I'm just going to do raw data, and I'll submit it. And what happens is okay, okay, we can't have a view, so we can't have a filter. We just need to make sure of that. So materialization, and then I'm gonna save and materialize. Okay. Now as soon as I submit, what happens is what PostHog does is that it's going to it's going to basically create this base table for me based on this SQL, and then based on that, and then I can just reference the raw data name that I've given to this, and then just use that to query it, right? And so what then that does is that every time I'm actually not querying the actual table, but I'm querying the view of that, or the materialization view of that, which is actually very, very cost friendly. So let's say, why is this taking some time? Let me refresh. Yeah, there's some issue with PostHog, but let's see if we can resolve it real quick. I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna again choose raw data, and I'm going to submit, and it should work. There's probably some issue with PostHog right now, but essentially as soon as you save it as a view, what you'll actually be able to do is something like this, where okay, it's actually created here. So let me just show you that, right? So what I'll actually be able to do is I can go here and I can select star from raw data. And so now what it does is this PostHog has actually just stored that view or that table or those columns, and then I'm just being able to directly reference that rather than actually running the query on my entire base table, or let's say my like raw table, which is raw events, which is coming from BigQuery. So I'm not querying that table again and again whenever I want to do something on this data. Great, so I think that's it for today. I hope this was helpful. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the in the comments below, and I'd love to reply to them and help you guys out. Have a great day.